Hi, my name is Marha Idris, and I'm doing my video project on the psychoanalytic perspective of a children's story, and I picked The Sneetches by Dr. Seuss. So, the story of The Sneetches is about these bird-looking creatures that live in this little town, and there's two kinds of Sneetches. There's the star-bellied Sneetches and the Sneetches without the bellies on their stars. And throughout the story, you see this kind of pattern of discrimination where the Sneetches with the stars on their bellies are not, they think they're too good for the other Sneetches without the stars on their bellies. They don't hang out with them, they don't play games with them, they don't invite them to their little campfires that they have, and they kind of just, push them to the side, and they say that they're better than everyone else. So there's that pattern. And then, so the story starts to pick up when this character named Sylvester McMonkey McBean comes into town and tells these Sneetches without the stars on their bellies that they could be better if they got stars on their bellies, and they could be exactly like everyone else. So he sets up this gigantic contraption, and he puts the Sneetches through them, takes their money, and puts stars on their bellies. And so what ends up happening is that these Sneetches all have stars on their bellies, and the star-bellied Sneetches are just like, look what they've done, because these people are frauds. So Sylvester McMonkey McBean realizes that he could make more money off of them, so he sets up a star-off machine where stars are being taken off of the Sneetches. So point of the story is that he is either taking off stars or putting stars on and taking all their money, and at the end of all that, they're left there standing, not realizing who was the better Sneetch in the first place. And moral of the story is that Sneetches are Sneetches, with or without stars. So that was the story. Now, looking at it from Freud's perspective, Freud talks about different kind of approaches you can have in psychoanalysis. Looking at it from a sociological perspective, discrimination was an underlying theme throughout the story. And then speaking in terms of structures of the personality, the id and the ego and the superego, I don't believe they were depicted definitely by one character. I think it was just kind of like split between everyone to represent one whole. The id, I would say, is, according to the text, it's defined as the hedonistic and aims to satisfy its urges. So that would be portrayed by the star-bellied Sneetches that behave like children and thought of themselves as better than everyone else, along with Sylvester McMonkey McBean, who came in as a con artist and tricked everyone and took their money, but then at the end left them realizing that Sneetches are Sneetches, and they're no different than the one with the stars on their bellies. And I like to believe that Mr. McBean also played the role of the superego, and the id, which then represented itself as the ego, which was then seen when the Sneetches realized that they were all the same. So my point in saying that is, I'm not sure if that made sense, was the ego occurred at the point of realization, where it's just like, so we're all the same and we're not any different, because the ego is the midpoint. It's the balance between the superego and the id. So I'm not sure if in terms of structures of personality that's correct, but because unlike other stories or other children's stories, they weren't really concentrating on one specific character. It was kind of a theme that they were looking at as a whole. So another primary theme was self-acceptance, believing that no person is any better or more special than you are. Dr. Seuss portrayed this theme by the use of Sylvester McMonkey McBean and the stars on and off machine. By sending the Sneetches through the machine over and over again, he ended up proving to them that they were all the same, because at the end they couldn't tell who was better. They then realized that Sneetches are Sneetches and no kind of Sneetch is the best. And then a defense mechanism that I think was used by the Sneetches was identification, because throughout the story you can see how the child without the star on his belly was constantly trying to fit in and associate with the star-bellied Sneetches. I'm not sure if I mentioned that in the story, but there was this one child, and he didn't have a star on his belly, but if you watch the video, you can constantly see this little kid trying to fit in with the rest of the Sneetches. He, invites himself to the campfire. He is trying to play volleyball with the kids, and, his dad is just like, his dad doesn't say anything, and the kids with the stars on, their belly, they don't play with him because they think they're too good for him. So, as described in the text, identification is a process of borrowing or merging one's identity with that of someone else. His life goal till the end was to be as equally liked and popular as the star-bellied Sneetches. Okay, so now looking at Jung's theory of the collective unconscious, which refers to traits and personality characteristics that are inherited. In the story of the Sneetches, the children of the star-bellied Sneetches inherit their rudeness towards other Sneetches, and the father is constantly trying to tell them not to play with other Sneetches that don't have stars on their bellies. So that, I believe, was the collective unconsciousness. It was the children of the star-bellied Sneetches, because they inherit their behavior. So now when talking about archetypes, those are people in life that influence our behavior, and in our case, they were better reflected in stories and myths. The Sneetches didn't really have a mother or father figure, but Mr. McBean played the role of the trickster. And according to the text, the trickster figure disrupts an order that has become sterile, and in doing so brings characters back to reality. And I think that Sylvester McMonkey McBean fit that criteria so perfectly, because that's exactly what he did. He tricked them, took all their money, took their stars off, put their stars back on, but only to prove to them that at the end that they're all the same. They're not any different. And when comparing it, when comparing Jung's theory and the Freudian perspective, they're slightly different. I have to say I don't think they're alike, but the point that they try to make is the same. Like the superego, the id, and the id, the ego, and the superego are different versions of the archetypes. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but I like to see it that way, just to make it make sense to me. So yeah, that was it. Thank you for listening.